Hello, my dears. Cheri here. Last time on the podcast, we were talking about what to do if you're having trouble losing weight on your healthy eating lifestyle, specifically the Eat to Live Nutritarian diet, or any healthy eating lifestyle, really. And you can go back and listen to that one if you are curious or having any issues with that. It's jam-packed with some tips and helpful information, not just, things that you can do, but also things that you can shift in your mind to help you. But this next 4 podcast episodes, we're going to be diving into this topic just a little bit deeper, but we're going to do a whole series, a 4-part series on the 4 basics of eating and weight loss, so how they relate to each other. And I'm just going to break everything down for you. This is kind of like an intro course here. This is like the 101 kind of a deal here. So I want to give you guys this so you have a really good foundation that you can proceed from. So the way that I'm going to separate this is going to be 4-part series, 4 podcasts. The first 2 are going to be about the practical tools, and the last 2 are going to be about more mindset. You're going to get so much information, so stick with me. I'm Cheri Alberts, and this is the Watering Mouth Podcast, and I'm going to teach you to eat to live, lose the weight, and love the process for good. Episode 3. The first thing I like to say about this is to kind of give you an illustration of how you could think of your journey. So I want you to imagine that this journey is a road trip. And it's kind of a never-ending road trip, right? And we want it to be never-ending because we don't ever want to stop healthy eating. We always want to continue this and get these wonderful benefits. But I want you to imagine you're on this road trip. I want you to imagine that you're in a car and you're going to a destination. Now, the destination might be your weight loss, or it might be a health outcome that you're looking for. Right now, we're hoping that we never end our healthy eating journey. But let's count this destination as some type of a goal that we have. And now, once we catch that goal, we can do another road trip and get towards the next goal or whatever. Maybe that next goal is for life, the long-term kind of a thing. But at least maybe this first goal we're looking at is some type of weight loss goal, something like that. So imagine we're in a car. We're on our road trip. Now, when we do a road trip and we're trying to get somewhere, we would never get there without a map, right? We would never get there without some type of navigation, because if we've never been to this place before, we have no idea where we're going, right? We need to kind of have something to help guide us. We also would want to have like a tire iron, spare tire, and, whatever other things you need for changing a tire, or maybe some spare oil, or maybe your cell phone, right? Some food, some snacks, things like this. So just as you would go on a road trip towards a destination with tools, just in case anything goes wrong or anything becomes difficult, you will want to take some tools with you on your weight loss journey as well, or on your healthy eating journey as well. These tools specifically can, it's in times of struggle that you can become better at the things you're struggling with and move forward again towards your destination. Okay, so I want you to kind of keep this imagery in mind here of this road trip that we're going on. We're trying to get somewhere. We're trying to get to a goal, and we're not going to do it without gasoline, right? We're not going to do it without our debit card. We can't. We can't do it without our Apple Pay or a cell phone or whatever, right? We need to have some tools to get us along the path. So I'm going to give you these tools in this next 4-part series. And of course, the rest of this entire podcast is all about these tools. So let's just start with, I'm going to give you 3 tools today, which are practical tools to do with food. Tool number 1 is the knowledge. It is the actual becoming a scholar of this lifestyle, and really to the point where when you're in a group of people who don't understand what you do, you can easily rattle off why you do what you do. You can easily answer questions of people who question you, right? A lot of people get really worried about going to social gatherings and eating this way because they know they're going to be put on the spot. But the way around that is with education. Teach yourself, school yourself, learn these concepts so you can pull them up whenever you need to, okay? I'm going to go through 10 quick points about the Eat to Live lifestyle that you can sort of glean some information from. And if you want to go further, of course, there's a wealth of information in Dr. Furman's books, in his podcast, on his website, and especially in the member forum. I highly recommend that if you've never joined his member forum. It's fantastic. You can search so much and get so much information. But so specifically the kind of basic concepts I'm just going to give you here. I'm going to give you 10 basic concepts of this lifestyle so you can kind of understand a bit of what you're getting into if you're a beginner, or maybe it will be good review for you if you've been doing this for a while. So number one is this concept of nutrient density, right? We've talked about this a little bit before. We're going to talk about this more as we go, but one of the most important concepts of Eat to Live is to just have a lot of nutrients. And when we talk about nutrients, we mean micronutrients. So we're talking about those little things in food that we know about that don't have any calories, but that help us a lot. So things like vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, flavonoids, lots of other big words that we don't really know what they mean, but they are super useful and they don't have calories. So what you want to do is get a ton of those. And that's really the kind of thing that helps the body do the things it needs to do on a cellular level: detox, removing wastes, repairing damage, giving us energy, all these kinds of things that are happening metabolically inside of our body and biochemically, doing things that we don't even have to think about, right? It is best fueled with lots of micronutrients. So we'll get into that more in just a second. The second thing is this idea of 90-10. So 90% of your calories you want to come from nutritarian foods. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. And you can learn so much more about this in the book Eat to Live or in the book Eat for Life. But the idea being that the foods that we eat, which are these high nutrient, whole foods, plant-based, amazing, healthful foods, are the ones that we want to make up 90% of our diet. So we're talking greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, seeds, and nuts, right? The G bombs. So we want to have tons and tons of our food calories being composed of these kinds of foods, and 10% of the rest of our diet can be, maybe off-plan foods, things that aren't necessarily in that other category. But we do want to reduce the amount of processed foods we eat, but we can have some leeway, meaning if we really don't want to give up meat, we don't have to. We just want to use it more as a condiment, just more as a little flavoring kind of thing. We don't want to be using it as the bulk of what we're eating anymore. Same thing with salt, oil, sugar, dairy, these very off-plan things that really we definitely don't eat in the very beginning when we're trying to get away from those things. But we can have them every once in a while if we have that ability to eat those things judiciously, right? Okay. So we have the 90-10 idea. And then there is 4 things here that kind of I want to go into just very briefly. And you can learn more about this on Dr. Furman's website. But the 4 components, the 4 things you want to think of characterizing the Eat to Live diet. So I'll go a little bit more in depth here. One is that the diet is hormonally favorable. So I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I just know what I've learned from the books, right? And you can learn all this too. And it's actually, we're going to get into that in a second. Let me jump ahead. Hormonally favorable, meaning that we don't have too much of certain hormones from foods or produced by our body because of the foods that we eat. So one of those is IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, which can mimic insulin. And so we don't want to be creating this growth in our body. And we create a lot more IGF-1 when we're taking in things like meat and dairy, lots of high protein type foods, animal foods in particular. Also insulin. We don't want to be having just the same kind of a thing. We don't want to be having our body produce too much insulin because that's bad for our sugar, insulin resistance. It's bad for our sugar levels and blood glucose levels. We really want to make sure that we're keeping that in check, and we can do that with a nutritarian diet. And you think a lot about these other chemicals in our body who create other processes in our body, like dopamine and serotonin and all these other things, cortisol. And we can create such balance in our body with a nutritarian diet. And we know that when things are out of balance, that's when we get out of whack. And so that's a very simplified explanation of this. Dr. Furman says that a lot more eloquently, obviously, but that is something that is a cornerstone of the Eat to Live diet. Another one is to avoid toxins and contaminants. You may be a little bit more familiar with this one. It's just the idea of, reduce the amount of toxins you can in your environment and everything that you take in, the cleaning products you use, the makeup you use, the clothes you use, the amount of plastic you use, whether you eat fish or not, the heavy metals you're taking in from the water you drink and the water you bathe in, possibly even, and the fish that you eat, the seafood, the animal products that you eat, etc. So just trying to reduce those as much as possible to reduce your risk of other diseases in the future. The next point being comprehensive nutrient adequacy, which is one that I don't think we think about very much, right? It's the idea that we're getting enough of these nutrients, like the broad spectrum of micronutrients. We're not just talking macronutrients, right? Carbohydrates, fat, and protein, and water. We're talking about these micronutrients, these tiny things. When we get enough of those things, then our body can perform well to the best of its ability. But the other side of this coin is not just getting the right amount of those things. It's also not getting too much of certain things as well. So we don't want to be taking these multivitamins that have thousands and thousands of percents of things, and then other things we're not getting very much of, right? Like so many people don't take vitamin D, but they'll take these multivitamins that have huge amounts of other things that aren't necessarily helpful for us to have those huge amounts, right? So just making sure that it's comprehensively adequate, okay? The next point is, I'm just a little bit more detailed on this nutrient density idea. Dr. Furman is always saying nutrient density in an environment of moderate caloric restriction, meaning there's this health equation that your health equals the amount of nutrients you take in, the amount of micronutrients you take in over the amount of calories, meaning the more nutrients you take in, the less calories you take in, the greater your health is going to be. Now, I think some people get really worried when they hear this because they think, oh my goodness, it's just a diet for people who don't want to eat, right? And who are starving themselves or something like that. And that couldn't be further from the truth. You can get plenty of calories and tons of nutrients in a low calorie diet, as long as you're comprising it of these types of nutritarian foods. And the more you do that, the lower amount of calories and the higher amount of nutrients, the greater your health will be, because your body will have less work to do to deal with, extra fat on our bodies, or maybe even extra muscle. It will have less work to deal with that, and it will have more resources to create better change in the body, to repair damage and things like this as well. So nutrient density in an environment of moderate caloric restriction too. So we're not talking, this is not starvation. We're talking moderate caloric restriction. Just eating just under what we need is a very important concept of the lifestyle, okay? The next one is this idea of our weight, right? So when we talk about lower calories, what we're talking about is getting our bodies to that weight that is optimal for us. And by the way, we never choose what that is. Our bodies choose what it is. Once we have gotten over our food addictions, which is possible, once we have gotten through the sort of mindset issues, and we just eat for fuel, we eat for what we need, we eat to moderately calorically restrict with a ton of nutrients. Once we can do that consistently, without drama, without issues, without the ups and downs, which we can train ourselves to do this. This is what we talk about in the Eat to Live family. And this is everything that I coach on, is how you do the mindset part, right? And it's so important that once our bodies are at that place where we can create the weight loss we need, our actual best weight is going to be somewhere in a very particular BMI range. BMI being the sort of, measurement tool that we use, body mass index, in order to kind of see where our body is. Now, of course, the body mass index scale is not perfect, but the way that Dr. Furman mentions it, the way he talks about it, is you want to be looking for a body, a BMI between 18.5 and 23. Now, that is a huge range. It's like 25 to 30 pound range. So it's actually quite forgiving, but it is on the low end of the spectrum, right? But the way to get there is by doing the things I said, wrapping your mindset around this, getting to the place where we're no longer, quote unquote, addicted to food or emotionally eating, things like that. When we can learn how to set those things down and retrain our brain to be disciplined with food and not really have any food issues anymore, then our body just gets to where it needs to be, okay? Next one is G-bumps. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but eating these types of foods that are, sort of prescribed on the nutritarian diet, the greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, seeds, and nuts, that's going to give us the immunity of the Eat to Live diet as well. So making sure we eat those things on a daily basis. And then the last two concepts here, number one is to never overeat. This one is tough because I've always been an overeater. And for a while I was like, it's okay if I eat extra, whatever, but actually it's not. I mean, actually it is the whole way that you get to that perfect body weight for you. It is the whole way that you release food addictions and you release issues with food and emotional issues and all that. When we can learn to not overeat, that's when we've really gotten it. Okay. And then the last thing of these 10 just components of the Eat to Live diet to mention very quickly is that the greens are the most important part. Okay. I'm going to say that again. The greens, the green things, the non-starchy green vegetables are the most important. They are the key of this lifestyle. Without those, you're still going to have a lot of food cravings. You're still going to have food addictions and emotional eating and things like that. It is the greens. It is the amount of green things that you eat that are going to create the biggest bang for your buck. Okay. We're going to talk more about this stuff as we go, but let's move on to the basics, the practical tools that I want to give you for this little road trip we're going on. I'm going to go through these briefly. We will expand upon these as we go through our podcast. But number one is what I just did for you. A practical tool that I want you to put in your car for your road trip is what Dr. Furman is saying all the time, and it really is so important, is to learn and review the key concepts of the Eat to Live lifestyle, okay? And that is what I just did for you. So it is, I think, the most important point because, as Dr. Furman puts it, and as I have found in my own experience and with my private clients and my clients in the Eat to Live family as well, it is precisely the knowledge of why we're doing it. That's what we call up in our head when we're wavering, when we're waffling, right? When we are like, I really want to eat that thing. No, if we can call up in our head very easily why we don't eat that thing anymore, that's when we start to make that change very easily. And I help my clients get to the place of the mindset of being able to even do that, right? But you actually need to school yourself in order to be able to call that up at a moment's notice when you need it. And you only school yourself by actually schooling yourself, like watching the videos, reading the books repeatedly, like doing this homework over and over again. And then the same thing with the type of information that I give, which is more mindset related. But specifically, the number one thing that we need to be doing is understanding why we're eating to live. Why are we choosing to forego salt, oil, and sugar in favor, which taste amazing. Nobody's gonna say they don't, right? But why are we choosing to forego that in order to eat things that don't have salt, oil, and sugar? Well, it's because of this and this and this and this and this and all that you can learn in the books. But the beautiful part about this is that the more we learn about it, the more we're able to eat of Eat to Live foods. And the longer we do that, we actually grow to prefer those foods over that salt, oil, sugar laden kind of foods. We actually start preferring those because, first of all, we know why, because we have a very strong story in our mind about why they're important. And then also because biochemically things change, right? Our hormonal responses change, our dopamine responses change, our taste buds actually change to the point where we're out of the pleasure trap now, right? We're out of that inability to get away from those standard American diet foods. And now we're solidly in the place where we love what we're doing. We get that feeling of well-being and we just want to keep doing it because it tastes so good. You can only get there when you actually taught yourself why, how, and how to do it long enough, right? So 2 other super practical tools that are a little bit proprietary for what I do and how I've created, for instance, the 21-day challenges that we've always done every quarter for the last couple of years. And now lately we've been doing free 5-day challenges so that you can just learn the rhythm of Eat to Live in just a few days. And there's a couple tools that I use there that I used in my own life, and I couldn't believe that no one else did that too. And so I had to make my challenges because I had to show people that if you use these two tools, it will make it so much easier. So let me give you those tools. Number one is rolling prep. So now, if you haven't done one of our challenges before, you will get a hands-on experience with this if you ever do that. So consider signing up for one of our challenges. But rolling prep is this idea of, a lot of people will talk about doing their prep all on one day of the week. And so they'll take their entire Sunday or something and just do a bunch of prep. Now, that works for some people, and that's exactly what people like sometimes because they're already sold on the concept and they don't mind taking a big chunk of their weekend to do that. That's not me. I'm not that person. I am sold on the lifestyle, but I'm not going to spend my entire Sunday on prep. I just won't do it. I would so much rather I like cooking, don't get me wrong. I like preparing foods and I like doing things for myself that feel like self-care like this. But I would so much rather be just like hanging out with my family or off at, a bookstore reading or spending some time in leisure on the weekends. And so what rolling prep is taking that Sunday of 4 or 5 hours worth of cooking and breaking that down over the week instead. So what we do is rolling prep would be where you look in your fridge and you see 4, 5, 6 containers of foods that are already prepared, but you didn't prepare them all at once. You did one thing on Monday, you did another thing on Tuesday, you did another thing on Wednesday. And by the time you know it, once you've done a week's worth of that prep, you have a ton of food to eat. And when you run out of something that you made on Monday, because it's been 5 days or something, you just make it again that next day. And then you make it again, make the thing you made on Tuesday on the next Tuesday or whatever. And you just kind of roll through that prep so that you never have to do too much at once. I try to keep it to 15 to 20 minutes of actual cooking or preparing every day max, right? Like I can do, what I try to do is I'll make 3 days worth of salads at a time, which is a lot of salad, but I keep it in this big tub in the fridge. I'll do all my lettuce, I'll do all my vegetables, just get the whole dry salad done, including tomatoes, things like that. Put it in the fridge and just keep it there. And then every day when I need some salad, I'll pull out enough salad and then I'll just dress it, right? The only thing I have to do is dressing, but I have already either made my dressing on a different day, not the day I made the salad, but maybe the next day, or I'm just using a really simple dressing like tahini and vinegar or, lemon juice and nutritional yeast or, and some walnuts or something like that. So I try to just do them on different days. And then if I have to make a soup, I make a soup on the Wednesday, right? And whenever I make soup nowadays, I use my Instant Pot because I can make a soup in 15 minutes, right? I just chop up all the stuff, throw it into the Instant Pot, turn it on, and then it cooks itself. I don't even have to think about it, right? Once you get good at that, that's 15 minutes. And now you have 4, 5, 6 days worth of food. And you can even put some in the freezer too if you want, right? And then another day, I might chop up a bunch of different vegetables. Like I might just chop up some onions, or I might I might cook my mushrooms that day, right? So I always have a container of mushrooms already cooked in the fridge. And then that way, if I ever forget, I can just grab a few mushrooms and eat those, right? I got that G-bomb ticked off. Or you do that with raw onions. So you always have them in the fridge. You can throw them on your salad or whatever. Or maybe you just make it, with the salad, something like that. So that's rolling prep. And on our 21-day challenges and our 5-day challenges and any challenge that I have created for you, we have separated out all the prep for you. So you never have to think about when to do something. We separate it out for you and tell you exactly which day of the challenge you create which part. And then we say, all right, so this day you're going to, freeze, you're going to chop up, peel, freeze, chop up your bananas, put them in the freezer. This day you're going to make your mushrooms. This day we're going to make the lentils that go on top of this salad, whatever. This day we're going to chop up these greens. So we always break it down for you so you don't have to think about any of that stuff. And this will give you a really good idea of that rhythm. Okay, so that's one of my favorite tips ever, especially for a beginner, is rolling prep. Might take you a little while to get used to that rhythm and get into that, but this is the best way to cut down on that prep work, okay? Now, this is the third the third practical tool that I'm giving you to do with the food, which is called sets. Now, this is definitely something I've never seen anyone do before, and it's something I created specifically for my challenges, specifically for the 21-day challenges, because what I found was when I was doing other people's challenges, everyone's challenges that I ever did, it was just way too much work. Like by day 5, I was like, ugh, I can't do this anymore. I'm over this. I'm done. And it was like you're making a new recipe morning, noon, and night. And you're just, I mean, by the end time you're done, you're just like, no, I can't do this anymore. And if that is your experience, if that is your first experience with a lifestyle, you're not going to stick with it, right? If you start off and within the first 5 days you're frustrated already, you're not going to stick with it. So I created something called sets. And what a set is when you do a set of recipes for one day, and then you repeat it for 2 more days. So you do a set of recipes for 3 days total. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that sounds terrible. I'd get so bored, right? But you'd actually be so surprised at how many people have done my challenges. And then this is the most loved part of the whole challenge is sets, because what happens is the first day you create all the recipes, you make the recipes. It's a little bit hard because you like never made them before, whatever. Next day, you've already got a bunch of stuff prepped. So all you have to do is pull it out of the fridge. You don't have to do anything that day. It's all done. Day 3, same exact thing happens. Now, day 2, you're like stoked because like everything's already done. You know how it tastes. Maybe you want to tweak a few things, whatever, but like it's all done for you. You don't have to think about your food at all that day. Day 3, same exact thing happens. But then what happens, you start to get like a little bit bored of the food, and then you're so excited for the next day's new set. So we do this in 2 and 3 day sets in all of our challenges. On the 21-day challenges, we do 7 3-day sets. In our 5-day challenges, we do a 2-day set and a 3-day set. So you can kind of see what those rhythms could be like for you. But what it does is it gives you the opportunity to not have to think so much. It gives the opportunity to not have to cook so much. And it gives you the opportunity to get used to recipes and get good at them before you move on. Instead of having to do 3 or 4 new recipes per day, you get to get really good at them, get used to them, and you can experiment with them a little bit too. And this creates so much flexibility in your journey and so much rhythm too, because now you really get what it's like to just, and then here's the thing I want to say about that too, is this idea of boredom, because Coach Nancy and I know this in my life too, the idea of boredom, we talk about this a lot, is so important in a really strange way that you might not be understanding. Now, I'm not saying you should hate your food. I'm saying you should be bored with the choices about your food. Like it should no longer be a thing that you hem and haw about, right? It should be like already decided. Like every day you already know what you're going to eat because you don't choose anymore. It's going to either be oatmeal in a smoothie, or maybe you're brave and you have soup and vegetables for breakfast or whatever, but you know that that's what you do. So you're just going to do that again. And then for lunch, it's always going to be a salad. Like there's just no question about it. You just always have a salad. And then for dinner, it's going to be some nutritarian entree, like a main dish, or maybe it's going to be like just a little bit leftover smoothie from the morning, or maybe you don't even have dinner because you're intermittent fasting, whatever. But like, it's so boring. You don't care. You're not like, ooh, what am I going to eat today? Ooh, I need so much choice and so much like excitement from my food, right? Like, where are we going to go out to eat, right? That's very standard. That's very like typical of a standard American dieter, that what they're looking for is something emotional from their food. And what we're looking for from our food is for our bodies to be healed and for us to feel great and vibrant and for us to not have to think about food so much, right? Because what we really like when we are on our deathbeds and we're thinking back to what we wanted to be thinking about our whole life, I guarantee it wasn't like which restaurant we were going to is going to seem important to us at that time. What we're going to wish we were thinking about was how we could be a better person, how we could spend more time with the ones that we love, how we could improve our station, how we could, become successful at this thing or reach this other goal or whatever. It's never going to be like, I'm so glad I wasted so much time arguing with my husband about what restaurant we were going to go to, or arguing with myself about what's going to get this craving out of my mind, right? Like, I guarantee you that is not something you're going to value having spent time on when you look back. And so can we become bored with our food? Can we like get to that place where it just doesn't even matter what we eat? Because like we just eat and then we get to move on, right? And so this is the idea of boredom we're talking about a lot, and that we're trying to create a bit of boredom because we want to get used to that. And we want to be like okay with it. Like when you see a kid, on summer break and all they're talking about is how bored they are. And as adults, we're just like, well, it's okay to be bored sometimes, right? Like that's fine. But we would never let ourselves be bored with our food, right? So there's kind of like that that like double standard there of we would never let ourselves be bored, right? And so this is a lot of stuff, mindset stuff we talk about, but that's why I have put in this idea of sets into all of the challenges, because it creates this sort of rhythm and it creates this just a complete change from what we're used to and the way we usually eat, of always needing entertainment from our food. Let's get our entertainment from somewhere else, and let's get our health and longevity and nutrition from our food. Okay? All right. So those are 3 practical tools to review. Number 1 is to learn and become a scholar and review Eat to Live knowledge. Understand why you're doing it. The second tool that we talked about today was rolling prep, where we don't do too much in one day and we split it out so it's so much easier and manageable. And number 3 is sets, where we eat the same meal for 2 or 3 days in a row so that we get really good at it. And by the time we're sick of it, now we're ready to move on and we are looking forward to the next set of meals. Okay. So as I said, all of these types of things I'm talking about on this podcast are located in the challenges that I put on for you, the 5 and 21 day and 9-day Eat to Live challenges that I have for you. Okay. So you can feel free to, I actually have a free 9-day challenge on my website, thewateringmouth.com. You just go to the homepage. It's right there. You can sign up, or you can sign up at thewateringmouth.com/challenge and pick up one of these challenges that I'm talking about when we do them live all together. That's really fun because there's so many people doing that and they're all grouped together in the Eat to Live High Nutrient Lifestyle Facebook group, where we all get together and do these challenges together for free. It's so much fun. So just consider joining us for one of the challenges that we do in the future. We would love to have you. Okay, so this was part 1 of the 4-part series of the 4 basics of Eat to Live and weight loss. Next, in the next podcast, we are going to be talking about practical tools again, but this time for weight loss. So stick around. You don't want to miss that one. And if you wouldn't mind considering leaving me a review for this podcast, I would really appreciate it, because that will help other folks just like you find me. So thank you so much in advance if you can do that. And now, like always, I wish for you calm, peaceful ease in everything you do today. Talk to you next time. Bye.